Well, our job is we're kind of organized into 5 sections, and so the first section, first division, is our future assessment division, and their job is to forecast the future, to look to the future, to out 15, 20, 25 years to try to frame what the future environment would be, knowing that you're never going to get it quite right. So from there, we have a concepts division that writes concepts off of that future environment, future concepts. We take those concepts and we war game them. And from the war games, we get insights. We bring in fleet units, different organizations to war game, and we learn things. And from there, we try to figure out how we would do live experimentation and test equipment, science and technology. So FAD, we call it, Future Assessment Division; CAP, Concepts and Plans; War Game Division, Experimentation Division, and then Science and Technology. So that's how the Marine Corps Warfighting Lab Futures Director is organized. And from there, our job really is to help the Commandant figure out how we should be organized, trained, and equipped for the future. So we've been tasked by the Commandant during this year, FY16, to look to the future and to give the senior leadership of the Marine Corps a few courses of actions on the future force. It's called Marine Corps Force 2025, and hopefully by the end of the year, our senior leadership will make some decisions, and we will begin to change our organization, how our organization is trained, and then how it's equipped to fight that future fight. I mean, we're in a time period where changing it. And we've been fighting for 15 years. I've been focused on, rightly so, on the current fight, but we have an opportunity to shift and look to the future right here over the next few years. And we've heard the Commandant say that he doesn't believe that our future force is prepared to fight the future fight. So it's our job to kind of quarterback that. That's what the Marine Corps Warfighting Lab does. It quarterbacks it for the Marine Corps and project towards the future. I think we've hit a nexus in the world where, first time in history, that there's more people that live in an urban environment that live in a rural environment. You know, the Western world is up into the 80s. You know, 80% of the American people live in an urban environment, but the rest of the world is migrating towards cities, and most of those cities are on the coastline and the littorals, which begs for a Navy Marine Corps team across the Roma, all the way from humanitarian assistance to full up, high-end warfare. We believe that we're going to fight in a more distributed manner as weapons become more lethal, more precision, and so forth. The force has to distribute and spread out just to survive. And then, so how do you do that? So that's one of our main focuses on the environment that we're going to fight on in the future. One, we don't have enough amphib platforms to do all that we think we're going to be required to do. So therefore, and we never have, right? I mean, there's always a nexus between the amount of money you have, resources, and what you need to do to accomplish a mission. So we got to find other ways to do that, and we're experimenting with different alternative platforms. We got a couple of big experiments. One this summer with RIMPAC, and next summer our big experiment will be Talbot Sabre, where we'll do some experimentation with alternate platforms.
Out here in the Pacific.
Yeah, so III MEF, we see III MEF as the ideal force in the Marine Corps, either III MEFs to experiment with, for a couple of reasons. One, the distributed nature that III MEF operates in across the Pacific, and how large the Pacific is, and how difficult it is to sustain yourself and project power out here. But probably the most important is the forces in III MEF are ready trained forces. You know, the UDP, they train back home, they come here full up round. They've trained, they've met all their METs, their medals, and they've and they're at, you know, close to TO, 90% of table organization and equipment. So they're, a lot of times when you try to experiment with forces back at 1 MEF or 2 MEF, they're in the cycle of working up, whether it's to go on a MU, to go to UDP, or to go to the Special Purpose MAGTAFs. Where when you get forces that are out here in the Pacific, they're ready to go, they're full up round, and they seem to be, this seems to be the ideal place to experiment with our concepts that we're looking at for that future fight. The 31st MU, again, it's a full up MU, right? They're at close to TO. They're fully trained. So we're going to look at ways to fight in a more distributed manner. Can we do it? Can we project, just let's, for instance, 3 reinforced rifle companies in 3 different locations spread out over, you know, multiple miles? Can we sustain that force? Can we provide fires that it would need? How fast would it take to aggregate that force and to mass it for a particular fight? And the 31st MU seems to be the perfect force for us to do that. They have ships that are readily available, you know, twice a year that they go out. So this MEF does more exercises with multiple partners than any other, either 1 MEF or 2 MEF. So that's kind of the reason we're keying in on 3 MEF here. I can just tell you, as a infantry battalion commander in 04 in eastern Afghanistan, I had 4 companies spread out over 400 miles on the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Again, in Iraq, you know, we began to distribute at some point where we were down at the platoon level, which really became, you know, the way we operated through the rest of Iraq into 9, 10, 11 when we came out, and then beginning really in 09 heavily into Afghanistan, we fought on a distributed manner. Be it was from fixed bases that, but it's kind of a hub and spoke. So you can kind of take that same concept and extrapolate it to ships. You know, ships are kind of your hub, and you would spoke out from the ships to project power ashore in different locations. So we can take some of the lessons that we've learned over the last 15 years, and we can take that to an amphibious environment. And again, 3 MEF's one of the ideal places to do that. You know, the Warfighting Lab's going to be trying to be involved in most of the exercises going out here. But when I say involved, a lot of what we do is we'll come out and we'll observe. I'll send teams led by a colonel, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 Marines that will gain insights, lessons learned, that type thing, and we'll just be part of observing the exercises that y'all are doing, which any exercise you're doing some type of experiment, whether you plan it to be an experiment or not, if you're pushing an envelope. So we're going to be, over the next few years, we're going to have you'll see a lot of MCWL futures out here in this theater, observing what's going on as you change. So the original document, for good reason, was put together and signed by General Amos and put out to give the Marine Corps an operating concept. But what that original document had, it had strategy in it, it had concepts, and it really had task as well. And what we're going to try to do with a refresh is kind of scope it down into an operating concept, the Marine Corps operating concept. Our commandant's he will release a service strategy soon, which is the overarching strategy for the Corps that we hadn't had in a long, long time. And then we'll write an operating concept underneath that, which will be EF-21. We'll revise it. Underneath EF-21 will be a family of concepts, both operational concepts and functional concepts. And then from there, those concepts underneath EF-21 is where a lot of the tasks will come, a lot of the more detail on how to. So that's the reason. We're going to kind of scope it down and make it a little sharper focus than the original one. And an operating concept is something that's not proven, right? So we will use experimentation and wargaming to try to prove those concepts. Maybe we disprove some of them. And over time, the idea is that would evolve into a doctrine once you refine those concepts. I mean, one of the large ones, the biggest thing that we're working on is is manned-unmanned teaming, robots, both ground robots and air robots, right? UAVs, down to the squad level. I mean, what does that look like? Is a fire team leader going to have, you know, his 3 Marines plus 3 robots, right? If you know, 5 years from now we're fighting in some urban slum somewhere in the world, if the first thing through a doorway is a Marine, then we're probably wrong, right? If we can send a robot through first that can look, listen, and kill, right? And the Marine outside decides if that robot kills or not. That's what we're looking at. You can kind of same thing with UAVs, right? So the bad guys are using UAVs as we speak. They're strapping explosives on them, and they're the poor man's, you know, precision-guided munition right now. So we're looking at that too. We're looking at ways to communicate farther down. How do you get, you know, intelligence and the ability to communicate in a more distributed manner down to the lower level? How do you know, what does a squad, what does the cyber ability of a squad have, right? What kind of information warfare, what kind of electronic warfare, what kind of you know, SIGINT do you have down to that level? So we're experimenting and wargaming with all of that as we move forward over the next year or so. We'd be surprised if we put a lot of this equipment and technology in the hands of these young sergeants and corporals and what they're going to be able to do with it. That Marine sergeant's never failed us before in anything we've ever done. We're all working very hard in the Marine Corps down in an infantry level to get a sergeant in front of each squad, get a more mature, a Marine that's been in 4, 5, 6, 7 years to be that squad leader, to have that rank of sergeant. You know, but what does that look like across the Marine Corps? What does that look like in an aviation unit? You know, what's the equivalent to the sergeant squad leader in the infantry in an intel company, you know, or a information warfare unit, right? So our manpower and policies, General Balakis has that task to try to figure that out across the Marine Corps. So it's more than just the infantry. It's going to be a lot more than just the infantry. We're going to have to change the way that we're organized for the future fight. We know that, right? We know that we're going to need more Marines that are cyber savvy, you know, information warfare as an overarching term that has EW, electronic warfare, you know, signals intelligence, intel Marines, and so forth. You know, what is the organization of a standard infantry battalion, and what is attachments to that? We don't have that answer right now, and that's one of the reasons that we war game and experiment. And again, we believe that III MEF will be a great partner with us over the next couple of years.